The topic I wish to discuss today is the hypocrisy of the negative reputation of whores. Prostitution is known as the so-called oldest profession. According to dictionary.com, a whore is a woman or a man who engages in sexual acts for money. Many speak negatively of whores and prostitution, but let's examine this topic for a moment and ask some important questions. 1. Why is the whore spoken about in such negative terms? 2. Why isn't the so-called whoremonger or customer discussed in negative terms? 3. What is the difference between a whore and a wife? 4. What is the modern-day whore? Let's address the first question. Why is the whore spoken about in such negative terms? Without boring you with a bunch of cultural historical bullcrap from the internet, I can tell you very quickly that women view whores as the so-called home wrecker and the reason for their failing marriages. Now obviously that cannot be true, because if the marriage is failing for the reason of adultery, it cannot be the fault of the whore. The reason it cannot be the fault of the whore is because if that particular woman who the man was sleeping with was not available at that specific time, then he would just choose another woman. Whether she would be a whore or not is irrelevant. The point is that the man is promiscuous and that this marriage would be doomed even if there were no women available. It is a known but undisclosed fact that most so-called promiscuous people are bisexual as well. What is promiscuity? Well, that's a subject for another video, because no one can really agree on what is promiscuous and what is not. Men view prostitutes in a negative way because they cannot control them, plain and simple. Many years ago, women were dependent on their husbands for their very livelihood. The whore has never had to depend on one man for her livelihood. Therefore she never had to submit consistently to the wishes of one man and be controlled by him. It is another known fact that men hate women they cannot control. This is why the whore is hated in general. She cannot be controlled. She does not play by the rules of the patriarchal society. A good and smart whore does whatever she wants and gets paid for it. Let's address the second question. Why is the so-called whoremonger or customer of the whore not addressed in negative terms? The answer is quite simple. It is male hypocrisy. It is the main reason why I cannot take so-called morality and moral values very seriously. In a patriarchal society, the only beings that are under the rules of so-called morality are its women. It makes no damn sense. It is like killing the roaches in your house and leaving the eggs. You cannot have a moral society with rules that only police half the population. You have a level playing field, or else the rules do not mean much at all. In the past, the only reason why women would even listen to this moral foolishness is because they had to present themselves as desirable to men in order to obtain a husband so that they could have their physical needs provided for. We are in a new age. In the 21st century world, we do not need to marry to be physically supported. We can go get a job, do what our boss tells us to do, and provide for our own needs. Unlike the wife, all jobs have hours. When the hours of the job are completed and you leave for the day, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. The wife's job is every day, 24 hours per day. She never gets any time off. This brings me to the third and final question. What is the difference between a wife and a whore? In a biblical setting, the wife is the helper of the husband, and the husband loves his wife just as he does his own body. In historical reality, the wife was a servant to the husband who only did his bidding so that she could be physically supported. The whore sets her own hours and is monetarily compensated by men for her physical support when she does their bidding. The only difference I see between the two is that one belongs specifically to one man and has children for him, and the other does not. In the end, both the whore and the wife must do the bidding of a man to obtain much needed financial support. If our true goal is not to be a biblical wife, then we should not try to aspire to be the whore or the wife. We should be the businesswoman, who has worked hard at her career and is now able to sustain herself without the help of any man. This woman makes her own money and employs her own whores. I've never received a cent from any man. The only thing I have ever received from men is complaints about how I need to change to suit their needs. They always held the false hope in front of me that if I could somehow change to suit their needs, I would then be the wife or even the number one whore. I found more stability and satisfaction in the work world. My boss gives me a set of standards that I must live up to in order to obtain monetary compensation for physical support. I have a set number of hours that I must perform these tasks to standard. When the hours are over, I still have my self-respect intact and I can do whatever I want to do with my free time. Needless to say, I am not very popular among men, but who gives a shit? After all, I do not need them for physical support, and if I ever needed sex, it would be easy enough to just find a promiscuous male who would be more than happy to cater to my demands for at least 10 minutes. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out why most 21st century males are unhappy in our modern society. They have lost their power over women and they are afraid. Women, just like some men now, see marriage as optional instead of a given. For years men have made women believe that they are not needed and that marriage to them is a privilege. This is especially true in non-white societies. Most white men do not have these issues because they have made themselves a permanent fixture in the lives of their women and the women of other races. They have arranged society so that we will always need them. I laugh when I hear black men threaten black women on YouTube with things like the wall of silence or dating outside the race and leaving them behind. Who cares if black men or other non-white men ignore black women? I don't give a damn if they even speak to me. If the white man ignores me, I have a true problem, however. I cannot find work. I cannot get my car fixed. I cannot even buy a home or a vehicle and maintain them without him. I guess it's safe to say that I am a modern-day whore. The negative videos that black men have been producing about black women, calling them whores and bed wenches, have an element of truth to them. But ask yourself, if you were a black woman, which would you rather be, a wife to a man who had no resources of his own or the whore of a man who had all the resources?